The Rolls-Royce pulled into the garage 3 days too early. Cheon So-jun sat in the driver's seat, rain drumming against the windshield, and felt the wrongness like a blade between his ribs. The penthouse lights were on, every single window blazing gold against the San Francisco fog. Vanessa had said she'd be at the gallery opening until midnight. She'd kissed his cheek before he left for Macau, told him not to wait up, told him she loved him. She'd lied. He took the elevator up in silence, his heartbeat too loud in his ears, drowning out the soft chime of each passing floor. The doors opened with a whisper, and the smell hit him first. Not perfume and wine, but something clinical. Sterile. Wrong. Like a hospital or a morgue, like death wearing expensive French fragrance as a disguise. Rage flooded So-jun's body so fast he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel the white-hot fury of complete betrayal. His hand found the Sig Sauer in his shoulder holster, without conscious thought. He would end this now, would end them, would paint these walls with their blood and never look back. Through the crack in the double doors, he could see them. Vanessa stood in front of his open-wall safe, the one hidden behind the Rothko in their bedroom, the one he believed only 3 people in the world knew existed. The painting itself was worth $2 million, but what it hid was priceless, or had been. Now it hung open, revealing the steel interior and the carefully organized contents that represented 15 years of carefully maintained secrets. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe ponytail she wore when she meant business, when she was being Senator Harrison Kim's daughter instead of So-jun's fiancée. She wore surgical gloves, the kind that left no prints, no DNA, no evidence. And her movements were precise, methodical, professional. And beside her, Riker, his head of security, the man who'd taken a bullet for him 2 years ago in Oakland when the Russians had tried to make their move, the man he'd promoted to his inner circle, given bonuses at Christmas, trusted with his life. Riker was 6'4" of solid muscle, former Navy SEAL, the kind of man who could break bones with his bare hands or pick a lock with a hairpin. Right now, he was holding something in those gloved hands, something that made So-jun's blood run cold. Welcome back, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. So find your quiet place, dim the lights, and get ready. Let's begin. A shirt, white cotton turned brown with old blood. So-jun's blood and someone else's. The shirt from the Petrov hit 3 years ago, the one that had started this whole nightmare, the one that had led to him meeting Vanessa in the first place. The shirt he'd burned. The shirt that should have been ash scattered across the Pacific, carried away by tides and time. But here it was. Or a perfect replica of it, manufactured evidence to seal his coffin, being sealed into an evidence bag with the kind of precision that spoke of training. Federal training. The DNA match is confirmed, Vanessa said, her voice sharp and cold. Nothing like the soft southern drawl she used in bed. Nothing like the warm laughter she shared at dinner parties. This was a different woman. A stranger wearing his fiancé's face. First-degree murder, death penalty. He dies by lethal injection, and we walk away with everything. Riker's laugh was low and hungry, the laugh of a predator anticipating a meal. And the timeline? 3 weeks. The insurance policy updates January 1st. Double indemnity. Vanessa sealed the bag with a practiced motion, then held it up to the light, examining it like a jeweler checking a diamond for flaws. 50 million, plus the legal businesses, plus the offshore accounts. By Valentine's Day, we'll be in the Maldives, and the dragon will be a corpse on ice. She said it so casually, like she was discussing vacation plans or restaurant reservations, like she hadn't just outlined the murder of the man she'd promised to marry. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. So-jun's vision went red at the edges, that familiar crimson haze that preceded violence, that had preceded every kill he'd ever made in 15 years of building his empire. His hand moved without conscious thought, drawing the custom pistol from his shoulder holster, his finger finding the trigger with the muscle memory of 1,000 hours at the range. One step forward, 2 shots, center mass, problem solved. He could bury them both before sunrise. Had done it before. Would do it again. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears, a war drum rhythm that drowned out everything else. Betrayal tasted like copper in his mouth. Like blood. Like all the violence he'd tried to leave behind when he'd met Vanessa. When he'd thought maybe he could have something normal. Something clean. He took that step forward, his weight shifting, his body moving into the killing stance his father had taught him when he was 16 years old. A hand clamped over his mouth from behind. Firm, decisive, cutting off the breath he'd been about to take. A body slammed into his back with terrifying strength, forcing him against the corridor wall hard enough that his shoulder hit the imported marble with a dull thud. The impact should have made noise, should have alerted everyone in the penthouse. But the hand over his mouth had angled his body perfectly to absorb the sound. Professional. This was professional. Sojun's training kicked in instantly. He could break this hold, twist left, elbow to the solar plexus, snap the wrist, reverse the position. 3 moves, 2 seconds. He'd done it in training 100 times, had done it in real life when the Yakuza had tried to grab him in Tokyo, when the Colombians had thought they could kidnap him for ransom. But something stopped him. A scent. Shea butter and something floral he couldn't name. Jasmine, maybe. Or gardenia. Feminine. Not threatening. And a voice, urgent and low against his ear, barely louder than breathing. Stay quiet, Victoria. Sojun froze. His assistant. The woman who organized his calendar and filtered his emails. The woman who'd worked for him for 6 months, and who he'd barely looked at twice. But the grip pinning him wasn't that of a secretary. And when he turned his head slightly, the eyes staring back at him weren't the eyes of someone who filed paperwork. They were wide, yes, terrified even. But underneath the fear was something else. Something cold and calculated. Something that knew death intimately. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking down. Victoria's free hand moved slowly, deliberately, pointing at the floor in front of the bedroom door. Sojun followed her gaze and saw nothing. Just imported Italian tile. Just expensive flooring. But Victoria's eyes were different. Her pupils dilated strangely, catching the dim light. Contact lenses. Special ones. She leaned closer, her lips brushing his ear, and whispered 3 words that stopped his heart. It's a trap. Then she tilted her head, and he understood. She could see something he couldn't, something invisible, and from the way her body tensed against his, from the way her breathing had gone shallow and controlled, he knew exactly what it was. Explosives. Riker rigged the door, she breathed, her voice so quiet he had to strain to hear it. It's rigged with a silent alarm connected directly to the federal task force. You step in, you trigger the raid before you can destroy the evidence. The rage in Sojun's blood crystallized into ice. He was trapped. Trapped between the woman plotting his murder and the woman holding him against a wall to save his life. Trapped between betrayal and a bomb. Trapped in his own home, in his own empire, by people he'd trusted. Victoria's hand slowly released his mouth. She pressed a finger to her lips, unnecessary, because Sojun understood the stakes now, and jerked her head toward the hallway. They needed to move. Now, they moved like ghosts, Victoria guiding him backward with the kind of spatial awareness that spoke of extensive training. Her hand stayed on his chest, right over his heart, feeling his pulse, monitoring his control. They slipped into his study, the room in the East Wing where he spent his nights building empires on paper and blood. And only when the heavy door clicked shut did she release him. Sojun spun, his hand finding his gun again, leveling it at her chest. At this distance, even suppressed, the shot would be loud. But he didn't care anymore. His entire world had just imploded, and the only person left standing was a woman he didn't know. Talk, he commanded, his voice deadly quiet. And this better be good, or you're fired, permanently. Victoria met his eyes without flinching. She stood there in her simple black dress, the uniform of his household staff, with a gun pointed at her heart, and she didn't beg, didn't plead. didn't cry. She just looked at him with those dark, knowing eyes. And for the first time since she'd started working for him, So-Jun actually saw her. She was young, mid-20s maybe. Her dark skin caught the low light of his desk lamp, smooth and unblemished, except for a small scar near her left temple. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, professional and neat, but her hands bore the calluses of someone who'd spent years training with weapons. And her posture, now that he was really looking, was that of a fighter. Balanced, ready. "Your fiancé," Victoria said, dropping the American accent she used at the office, her voice reverting to a clipped, precise tone. "Isn't just cheating on you, Mr. Cheon. She's planning to kill you. And I can prove it." The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Seo-Jun's finger stayed on the trigger, but he didn't pull it. Because despite everything, the gun, the betrayal, the bomb he'd almost walked into, something in her voice told him she was speaking the truth. "Explain," he said. "Everything. Now." Victoria took a slow breath, her eyes never leaving the barrel of his gun. 2 weeks ago, I was cleaning your upstairs study, the one Mrs. Vanessa thinks is locked. I heard voices through the heating vent. Her voice and a man's. They were discussing your murder, Riker. "Yes," Victoria's jaw tightened. "But it's not what you think. They're not lovers. They're partners. Federal partners." The word hit So-Jun like a fist. Federal. "She's not Vanessa Kim, daughter of Senator Harrison Kim," Victoria continued, her voice steady despite the gun. "She's Agent Vanessa Hartley. DEA. She's what they call a widow spider. She seduces high-value targets, manufactures evidence, and ensures they die in federal custody while she seizes their assets through civil forfeiture." So-Jun's blood turned to ice water. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Victoria reached slowly into her pocket, watching his eyes, making sure he saw every movement, and pulled out a small USB drive. "I recorded everything, every conversation for 2 weeks. Their plans, their timeline, the names of everyone on their payroll, including the judge who's going to deny your bail, and the warden who's going to ensure you don't survive protective custody." The gun wavered. Just slightly. Just enough for Victoria to notice. "Why?" So-Jun asked, his voice rough. "Why tell me? Why save me?" Victoria's expression shifted then. Softened. Just for a moment. "Because I watched you for 6 months, Mr. Cheon. I saw how you donate to children's hospitals under fake names. How you paid for your driver's daughter's college tuition when he was too proud to ask. How you visit your mother's grave every Sunday even when you're exhausted." She paused. "I decided you were worth saving." Before So-Jun could respond, before he could process the implications of her words, a distant sound made them both freeze. Sirens. Multiple vehicles. Coming fast. Victoria moved to the window, peering through the edge of the curtain. "SWAT team. FBI. They're early." "Early for what?" "For the raid. They were supposed to wait until they found you with the evidence, but Riker triggered the silent alarm early. He wants the SWAT team to breach while you're confused. He's counting on you getting shot in the crossfire." She turned back to him, and the fear was clear in her eyes now. "We need to leave. Right now." Victoria killed the desk lamp with a swift motion, plunging the study into darkness. Through the window, So-Jun could see the flash of blue and red lights reflecting off the fog, painting the night in violent colors. Multiple vehicles, tactical teams. He could hear the rumble of heavy engines, the slam of doors, the organized chaos of a federal raid in motion. They had maybe 2 minutes before the building was locked down, before every exit was covered, before escape became impossible. "The elevator's compromised," Victoria said, already moving toward the bookshelf on the east wall with the kind of certainty that spoke of extensive planning. Every step was purposeful, economical, nothing wasted. "Riker controls building security. He'll have kill switches on every system, video feeds on every camera, locks on every door. He'll trap us in here like rats in a cage." "Then how?" She pressed something on the shelf. A book, maybe. So-Jun couldn't tell in the darkness. and a section of paneling slid open with a whisper of well-oiled mechanisms, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft that dropped down into absolute blackness. The opening was barely 2 feet wide, designed for utility workers to access the building's infrastructure, not for people to use as escape routes. Every luxury building in San Francisco has emergency access routes for repairs, Victoria said, her voice calm despite the sirens that were getting closer by the second. Fire codes, earthquake safety, all of it requires redundant access to critical systems. This one connects to the garbage chute system on the south side. It's the only route Riker can't monitor because it was installed before the digital security system went live. Sojun stared at the opening, at the dark shaft that dropped 40 stories into nothingness. You're insane. You're dead if you stay. Victoria was already pulling off her heels, moving with that economical grace that suggested extensive training. She reached under her dress, the simple black uniform of his household staff, and withdrew something that made Sojun's blood run cold, a subcompact Glock 26 from a thigh holster. She pulled a suppressor from her pocket and threaded it on in one smooth motion. Not the kind of weapon you picked up at a gun show. The kind of weapon that spoke of black market connections and professional violence. I scoped every escape route in this building within a week of starting work here, memorized the blueprints, tested the access points, timed the routes. This is our only option. The sirens were getting louder now, maybe 30 seconds out. Sojun could hear boots in the stairwell, heavy tactical boots on marble, the sound of armed men moving with purpose. Could hear the metallic click of weapons being readied, safeties being disengaged. Could hear the radio chatter, all units, target building, prepare to breach. He made his decision in less than a second. Lead the way. Victoria slipped into the shaft first, her body disappearing into the darkness with barely a sound. Sojun followed, his shoulders barely fitting through the opening, his expensive suit jacket catching on rough concrete edges. The space was cramped, claustrophobic, barely wide enough for one person, let alone two, and it was dark, absolute, suffocating darkness that pressed against his eyes like a physical weight. There's a ladder, Victoria whispered from below him, her voice echoing strangely in the confined space. Rungs welded to the side wall every 18 inches. Follow my breathing. Listen to the rhythm. Don't use your phone light. It'll flare in their night vision goggles like a beacon. We need to be ghosts. So Sojun descended in complete darkness, his hands finding the metal rungs by feel, his body hyper-aware of every sound, every movement, every breath. The rungs were cold beneath his palms, textured with rust and age. His dress shoes, Italian leather, custom-made, worth more than most people's monthly rent, slipped slightly on the metal, forcing him to grip harder with his hands. Below him, he could hear Victoria's breathing. Controlled, measured, the breathing of someone who'd done this before or something very much like it. Could smell that scent again. Shea butter and flowers mixed now with concrete dust and old metal. Could sense her presence in the darkness like a lodestone, pulling him down, guiding him toward safety or doom. They climbed down for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, time stretching strangely in the sensory deprivation of the shaft. The metal rungs bit into Sojun's hands, drawing blood he couldn't see but could feel, warm and slick, and making his grip uncertain. His shoulders screamed from the confined space, from holding his body weight with arms that were strong but not trained for this kind of sustained vertical climbing. Above them, he could hear muffled sounds through the concrete and steel. Doors being kicked in, the splintering crack of wood giving way to battering rams. Commands being shouted in that professional monotone of federal agents executing a warrant. FBI, search warrant, clear, clear, moving to the next room. The systematic destruction of his home, his sanctuary, everything he'd built. Stop, Victoria whispered, after what might have been 10 floors or 20. Sojun had lost count in the darkness. This level connects to the garbage chute. We need to transfer horizontally about 6 feet, then drop another 10 stories. It's going to be tight. Transfer how? Her hand found his ankle in the darkness, her fingers wrapping around his leg with surprising strength. The touch was intimate despite the circumstances. her skin warm through his sock. She guided his foot to a different surface. Rougher, wider, a concrete ledge that jutted out into the shaft. Like this. Feel that ledge? It's a maintenance platform installed in the 70s when they renovated the waste system. We shimmy across, then drop into the chute itself. It was insane. It was reckless. It was the kind of thing Sojun would have sent his men to do while he watched from a safe distance, coordinating from somewhere secure and climate-controlled. But he was out of options. And the woman below him had saved his life twice in the last 10 minutes. Had seen something he'd missed. Had prepared for a disaster he hadn't even known was coming. He followed her instructions, his body pressed flat against the cold concrete as he moved horizontally, hands finding purchase on rough surfaces, feet scrabbling for grip. And then he felt it. The opening of the garbage chute, wider than the maintenance shaft, with smooth metal sides designed for friction-free descent of trash bags and waste. "We're going to slide," Victoria said, her voice still calm, still controlled, like she was explaining how to pour tea instead of describing a potentially fatal plunge down a garbage chute. "Keep your arms and legs out to control your speed. Feet first, back against the metal. If you go too fast, you'll break your legs when you hit bottom. Too slow, and you'll burn through your suit and skin. Find the balance." Comforting. "I try." And there was something almost like amusement in her voice. "Count to 3 after I drop, then follow. Good luck, Mr. Chun." And then she was gone, dropping into the chute with barely a whisper of sound. Sojun counted 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and followed. The slide was terrifying. His back hit the metal with a force that knocked the air from his lungs. And then he was sliding, accelerating, the sides of the chute rushing past in absolute darkness. He spread his arms and legs, feeling the friction burn through his expensive suit, slowing his descent, but not stopping it. He hit bottom hard, his knees buckling, his body rolling instinctively to absorb the impact. He landed in something wet and soft and foul-smelling, garbage. He was in a dumpster full of garbage. Victoria's hand found his arm in the darkness, pulling him up. "Move. We've got maybe 30 seconds before they seal the garage." They climbed out of the dumpster, and Seo-jun got his first good look at her since the study. Her dress was torn at the hem, her arms were bleeding from the slide, but her eyes were clear, focused, and she was already scanning the parking garage for their next move. "There?" she said, pointing to a gray sedan 3 rows over. "I hid the keycard for the guest parking level. Riker never checks it. Stolen plates, clean registration. I prepped it last week." "You prepped an escape vehicle?" "I prep for everything, Mr. Cheon. That's why you're still alive." They ran, their footsteps echoing in the concrete space. Victoria didn't fumble with keys. She had them in her hand already, pressed the fob, and the sedan's lights blinked once. They were inside and moving before Sojun's brain caught up with his body. Victoria drove, her hands steady on the wheel, her eyes checking mirrors constantly. She took them out through the service exit, the one delivery trucks used, the one that fed onto a side street away from the main entrance where the SWAT team was setting up their perimeter. They were 6 blocks away when Sojun heard it, a muffled boom that made the windows rattle. He turned, looking back, and saw a flash of orange light from the direction of the Millennium Tower. "They breached the penthouse," Victoria said quietly. "Probably used a battering ram on your bedroom door." The breach. The trap Riker had set. If Victoria hadn't stopped him, if he'd walked through that door, he'd be in federal custody right now, or dead in the crossfire. Sojun's hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists, willing the tremor to stop. He'd survived assassination attempts, had walked into firefights, had stared down the barrels of guns without flinching. But this calculated betrayal by the woman he'd planned to marry, by the man he'd trusted with his life, this was different. "Where are we going?" he asked, his voice rougher than he intended. "Oakland. I have a safe house." "You have a safe house." "Mr. Cheon," Victoria said, and there was something almost like amusement in her voice. "You really need to start paying attention to the people around you." She drove fast, but not recklessly, taking surface streets, avoiding the highways where they'd be visible to traffic cameras. The rain started as they crossed the Bay Bridge, sheets of water hammering the windshield, turning the city lights into blurred streaks of color. Seo-jun watched her drive, really watched her. The way her fingers gripped the wheel with exactly the right amount of pressure, the way her eyes tracked every vehicle around them, every potential threat, the way she'd shifted the rearview mirror to cover her blind spot. Professional, military-grade professional. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Victoria's jaw tightened. She didn't answer immediately, her eyes fixed on the road. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, she spoke. "I wasn't hired by HR Seo-jun." The use of his first name sent a shock through him. She'd never called him anything but Mr. Chan in 6 months. 6 months ago, she continued, her voice careful, measured. "I was sent by the Busan cartel to put a bullet in your head." The words dropped into the car like stones into still water. Seo-jun's hand moved instinctively to his gun, but Victoria's eyes flicked to him in the mirror. "Don't," she said quietly. "You shoot me, we crash. You crash, you die. And Vanessa wins." His hand stayed on the grip. "Give me one reason not to kill you the second we stop." "Because I didn't do it," Victoria said. "I was supposed to. Had the shot lined up 3 different times. But I didn't take it. And you want to know why? Enlighten me." She took a breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer, vulnerable. "Because you're not what they told me you'd be. They said you were a monster, a dragon who burned everything he touched. But I watched you, Seo-jun, for weeks. And I saw something different." "What did you see?" "A man trying to build something real in a world that only understands destruction." The rain hammered harder. Victoria took an exit, diving into the industrial district of Oakland, where the streetlights were sparse, and the buildings leaned into each other like drunk men. "The cartel thinks I'm still working the long con. But they got impatient and sent a freelancer 2 months ago. I found his body in a dumpster near Fisherman's Wharf. You killed him and didn't even know it." Seo-jun remembered. A tale he'd noticed. A confrontation in an alley. A man who'd drawn on him and died for it. "So you're a dead woman walking," Seo-jun said. "We both are," Victoria replied. She pulled into a narrow alley between 2 abandoned warehouses and killed the engine. "Welcome to your new life, Mr. Cheon. Hope you enjoy poverty." The safe house was exactly what Seo-jun expected. A dump. A 3rd-floor walk-up above a shuttered mechanic's shop. The kind of place where the walls were thin and the neighbors didn't ask questions. Victoria unlocked 3 separate deadbolts before pushing the door open. Inside was sparse but functional. A single room with a kitchenette in one corner, a bathroom visible through a partially open door, and a futon that had seen better days. "First things first," Victoria said, wrinkling her nose. "You smell like rotting fish. The shower is through that door. There's a towel and some oversized scrubs." A single room with a kitchenette in one corner, a bathroom visible through a partially open door, and a futon that had seen better days. But the windows were covered with blackout curtains, and Seo-jun noticed the security camera feeds on a laptop in the corner. Professional paranoia. He was about to speak when Victoria moved. Fast. She was on him in a heartbeat, one hand on his chest, the other reaching for his jacket. For a wild second, Seo-jun thought she was attacking him. But then he realized she was checking for wounds. "You're bleeding," she said, her fingers finding the tears in his suit where the chute had shredded fabric and skin. "Sit. I'm fine. You're bleeding all over my safe house. Sit." There was command in her voice now, the kind of authority that didn't expect argument. Seo-jun found himself sitting on the edge of the futon, while Victoria disappeared into the bathroom, returning with a first aid kit that looked military grade. She knelt in front of him, and for the first time, Seo-jun was close enough to really see her. The scar near her temple was old, surgical. Her hands, as they worked his jacket off his shoulders, were steady despite everything they'd just been through. And her eyes, those dark, endless eyes, held secrets he was only beginning to understand. "This will sting," she warned, dousing a cotton pad with antiseptic. It did, but Seo-jun didn't flinch. He'd had worse, much worse. He watched her work instead, watched the way her brow furrowed in concentration, the way she bit her lower lip when she was focusing. Intimate details he'd never noticed before, never bothered to notice. "Your fiancée," Victoria said quietly, cleaning a cut on his shoulder, "isn't who you think she is. You said that already. I mean beyond the federal agent part." She paused, her fingers gentle against his skin despite the antiseptic burn. "She's done this before, multiple times. They call her the widow in certain circles. She has a type. Powerful men in organized crime. She seduces them, manufactures evidence, gets them locked up, and seizes everything through civil forfeiture. 3 men in the last 12 years. All of them are either dead or serving life sentences in supermax facilities." Sojun's blood went cold. 5. "That they know about?" Victoria said. "Could be more. She's good at covering her tracks, and she's patient. The average operation takes 4 years from first contact to conviction." 3 years. Sojun had met Vanessa 3 years ago at a charity gala in Napa. She'd been wearing white, had smiled at him like he was the only man in the room, had made him believe he could have something normal, something clean, something that wasn't built on blood and fear. It had all been a lie. "How do you know all this?" Sojun asked. Victoria's hands paused. "Because the cartel gave me her file. I've been their cleaner for 5 years, but 6 months ago they gave me my biggest target, you. They wanted me to know what I was walking into, who the major players were, what the power structure looked like." She resumed cleaning his wounds, her touch careful. "I recognized her methodology, spent time in Langley doing research, found the pattern. You were intelligence, something like that." She didn't elaborate, just reached for bandages, her fingers brushing against the dragon tattoo that curved around his neck. She traced it without thinking, and Sojun felt that touch like electricity. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "In 6 months. Why didn't you warn me?" Victoria met his eyes then, really met them, and what he saw there made his chest tight. "Because I needed proof," she said quietly. "And because I needed to know if you were worth saving, if you were the monster they said you were, or if you were something else." "And what did you decide?" Her thumb traced the edge of a bandage she'd just applied, the touch lingering longer than necessary. "I decided that monsters don't visit their mother's grave every Sunday, don't pay for children's surgeries, don't read philosophy at 3 in the morning when they think no one's watching." She'd been watching him, really watching him, seeing things he'd thought were private, were hidden. The realization should have made him angry, should have made him feel violated. Instead, it made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt in years. His hand covered hers, stopping her ministrations. "Victoria," his phone rang. Not his primary phone. That was back at the penthouse, probably being picked apart by federal forensics teams. This was his burner, the one only 3 people had the number to. His lieutenants, the Iron Guard. Sojun pulled it out, looking at the screen. Kim Jae, his second in command. Relief flooded through him. Someone was still alive, still loyal. He moved to answer, but Victoria's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Don't," she said urgently. "That's my second. Don't." Her grip was iron. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like panic. "Sojun, don't answer that phone." "Why not?" "Because Riker called a staff meeting 10 minutes ago. Your entire inner circle. The Iron Guard, your lieutenants, your drivers, your accountants, everyone. He told them you'd had a breakthrough on the Petrov case and wanted to celebrate." Seojun's stomach dropped. "No." He used the company account to order a case of Yamazaki 18 and 3 vials of oleander extract last week. Victoria's voice was shaking now. "But it wasn't your favorite, Sojun. It was oleander extract. Tasteless, odorless. Mimics a heart attack perfectly." The phone kept ringing. Sojun stared at it, unable to process what she was telling him. "They've been poisoned," Victoria whispered. "All of them. If they aren't dead yet, they will be within the hour without an antidote. Riker poisoned your entire command structure. And if that phone is ringing, it's because someone found the bodies and the FBI wants to know where you are." Sojun's hand started shaking. The phone rang 3 more times, then went silent. A moment later, a text came through. "Boss, where are you? Everyone's down. Need immediate medical. Please respond." It was a trap. Had to be. But the alternative? That everyone he trusted, everyone who'd fought beside him, everyone who'd bled for his empire, was dead. He couldn't breathe. The walls of the tiny apartment were closing in. His men, his family, his empire, all of it gone in one calculated move. Victoria's hands framed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Breathe," she commanded. "Sojun, breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Come on." He did. Focused on her eyes, on her voice, on the warmth of her palms against his cheeks. Slowly, the panic receded. Slowly, the world came back into focus. "You have nothing," Victoria said quietly. "No army, no money, no home, no empire. Vanessa is seizing your known assets, the penthouse, the club, the cars. She doesn't have the offshore codes yet. Your properties are under federal lien. In the eyes of the law, you're a dead man walking. Then why am I still breathing? Because I'm not ready to let you die." The intensity in her voice, in her eyes, hit him like a physical force. She meant it. This woman, this assassin sent to kill him, this secretary he'd barely noticed, had risked everything to keep him alive. "What do I have left?" Sojun asked, his voice rough. Victoria's hands slid from his face to his shoulders, grounding him. "You have me," she said simply. "And you have the one thing Vanessa doesn't know about." "What's that?" She smiled then, small and dangerous. "Me." Outside, the rain lashed against the windows. Inside, Sojun felt something shift in his chest, something fundamental. The dragon was dead. The empire was ash. But from those ashes, something new was beginning to rise, and it looked like the woman kneeling in front of him with blood on her hands and fire in her eyes. They sat in silence for a long time. Victoria finished bandaging his wounds, while Sojun tried to process the complete destruction of his life. Every few minutes, his phone would buzz. Messages, calls, alerts. Each one a reminder that somewhere out there, Vanessa and Riker were dismantling everything he'd built. "You should eat," Victoria said finally, standing and moving to the kitchenette. "You're running on adrenaline, and that'll wear off soon." "I'm not hungry. Eat anyway." She pulled things from a small fridge, bread, cheese, something that might have been cold cuts. Simple food, survival food. She assembled sandwiches with the same efficiency she'd used for everything else. And when she set one in front of him, Sojun found himself eating mechanically. Victoria sat across from him on a folding chair, her own sandwich untouched. She'd changed out of the torn dress into black tactical pants and a fitted tank top that showed arms corded with lean muscle. No longer the secretary. Now she looked like what she really was, a weapon. "Tell me about the Busan cartel," Sojun said finally. Victoria's jaw tightened. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she sighed and set her sandwich down. "I was recruited young," she began. 18. Fresh out of secondary school in Lagos with no money and no prospects. The cartel was expanding into West African shipping routes. They wanted local recruits who wouldn't be missed. A man approached me at a market, said he could give me a life, training, purpose. All I had to do was learn to kill people, and you agreed. I was 18 and stupid. Victoria's laugh was bitter. I thought I was going to be a spy, like in the movies. Instead, I got 3 years of hell in a training camp in Busan. Learned 6 languages. Learned to kill with anything from a sniper rifle to a soup spoon. Learned to disappear into any crowd, any life, any identity. The hardest part was pretending to be incompetent. Watching your accountants make mistakes I could fix in 5 minutes. But having to pretend I only knew how to use Excel. "How many?" Sojun asked quietly. "How many what? How many people have you killed?" Victoria met his eyes, didn't flinch, didn't look away. 15, confirmed. Maybe 3 or 4 more where I wasn't sure if they died or just wished they had. 15. She said it like she was reciting a grocery list. but Sojun could see the weight of it in her eyes, in the set of her shoulders. 15 lives carried around like stones. "Why didn't you kill me?" he asked. "I told you." "No." Sojun leaned forward. "The real reason. Not the pretty story about visiting my mother's grave. The real reason you let me live." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because you looked at me." "What?" "In 6 months of working for you, you looked at me exactly 3 times, Victoria said. "Really looked. Not through me. Not past me. At me. Like I was a person instead of furniture." She stood abruptly, moving to the window, her arms wrapped around herself. "First time was month 2. I brought you coffee wrong, cream instead of black. You could have fired me, could have yelled. Instead, you asked if I was okay. Said I seemed distracted. No one in my entire life had ever asked me that." Sojun remembered, vaguely, a morning when Victoria had looked unusually tired, when he'd noticed shadows under her eyes. "Second time was month 4, she continued. "You overheard me on the phone with my cousin in Lagos. Heard me crying. You gave me the rest of the day off. Told me family was important. Slipped an extra $500 in my next paycheck." He remembered that too. Had thought nothing of it at the time. "Third time was 3 weeks ago." Victoria turned to face him. "I stayed late to finish filing. You were working in your study. When you left, you saw me still at my desk. You didn't say anything, just set a cup of tea next to me. Chamomile. You remembered from 6 months ago that I liked chamomile." Sojun had forgotten he'd done that. "Monsters don't do that," Victoria said softly. "Monsters don't remember what kind of tea their assistants like. So I started digging, started really watching you. And I found a man who'd built an empire on blood but who wanted something more, who donated to orphanages, who paid for surgeries, who cried at his mother's grave every Sunday." She moved back toward him, and Sojun found himself standing to meet her. They were close now, close enough that he could see the pulse jumping in her throat, close enough to smell that scent of shea butter and flowers. "You asked why I didn't kill you?" Victoria whispered. "I didn't kill you because somewhere between the first cup of coffee and the last cup of tea, I fell in love with the man you were trying to become." The words hung between them like a lit fuse. Sojun's hand came up without conscious thought, his fingers brushing her cheek. She didn't pull away, didn't flinch, just stood there, looking at him with those dark, endless eyes that held secrets and scars, and something that might have been hope. "You don't know me," he said roughly. "I know you better than anyone," she replied. "I know you take your coffee black. Know you read Camus when you can't sleep. Know you have nightmares about your mother's death and wake up calling for her. Know you alphabetize your books by author but your weapons by caliber. Know you." He kissed her, or she kissed him. Later, neither of them would be sure who moved first. But suddenly his mouth was on hers, and her hands were in his hair, and they were pressed together with 6 months of unspoken tension finally finding release. Victoria tasted like rain and determination. Her lips were soft, but her kiss was fierce, demanding, giving as good as she got. Sojun's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, feeling the lean muscle of her body against his. She was strong, stronger than she looked, and when she pushed him back toward the futon, he let her. They fell together, her body covering his, her weight welcome and grounding. His hands found the hem of her tank top, slipped beneath to find warm skin and the ridge of scars, old wounds from a violent life. She gasped against his mouth when his fingers traced them, not from pain but from something else, something raw and vulnerable. "Sojun," she breathed, pulling back just enough to look at him. Her eyes were dark with want, but also with something like fear. "We shouldn't. Why not?" "Because this is insane. Because 12 hours ago you were engaged to someone else. Because I'm a killer sent to murder you. Because we're both dead anyway." Sojun finished. He reached up, framing her face with his hands. "Because everything I thought I knew was a lie. Because you saved my life. Because you're the only real thing I have left." Victoria's eyes closed, and when they opened again, They were bright with unshed tears. "This won't end well. Nothing in my life ever has." She laughed at that, a short, sharp sound that might have been a sob. And then she was kissing him again, deeper this time, her body moving against his with an urgency that spoke of desperation and desire and defiance against the world that wanted them dead. Sojun's hands explored the landscape of her back, finding muscle and scars and the subtle curve of her spine. She moved against him like water, fluid and powerful, and when her hands found the bandages she'd just applied, she was careful to avoid the wounds even as she sought the places that made him groan. They came together like a storm, fierce and consuming and necessary, in the cramped confines of a safe house that smelled like dust and rain. With the world hunting them and their pasts littered with bodies, they found something that felt almost like salvation. Victoria's skin was warm beneath his hands. Her breath was hot against his neck. Her voice, when she whispered his name, sounded like a prayer and a curse and a promise all at once. And when they finally broke apart, gasping and tangled in each other, Sojun realized something fundamental had changed, not just in his circumstances, but in him. The dragon had burned. And from the ashes, something new was rising. Something that looked like the woman in his arms who'd killed for money but chose to save for love. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, Sojun pulled Victoria closer, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, steady and sure. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Victoria's fingers traced idle patterns on his skin, following the dragon tattoo that wound around his ribs. "Now we stop running," she said. "Now we burn it all down. Vanessa, Riker, the federal task force, all of it." "How?" She lifted her head, and the smile on her face was sharp and dangerous and beautiful. "Because I didn't just watch you for 6 months, Sojun. I prepared for war, and I'm very good at war. Tell me." "Later." Victoria settled back against him, her head on his chest, her arm across his waist. "Right now, let me have this. Let me have you, just for a few hours, before we go back to being weapons." So Sojun held her. Held this woman who'd killed 15 people but couldn't kill him. Held this woman who'd risked everything to save a man she barely knew. Held this woman who smelled like shea butter and flowers and tasted like redemption. And for the first time in 15 years, Sojun let himself hope. Sojun woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of typing. For a disorienting moment, he forgot where he was. Expected to see the Italian marble and floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse. Instead, he saw water-stained walls and a woman at a laptop, silhouetted against the gray morning light. Victoria. Still wearing his shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders, beautiful in a way he'd never let himself notice before. She glanced up, catching him watching. A small smile touched her lips. "Coffee's on the counter. Black, no sugar," she remembered. Of course she did. Victoria remembered everything. Sojun stood, wincing as his body reminded him of their escape and everything that had happened after. He found the coffee, cheap instant, nothing like what he was used to, and drank it anyway. Caffeine was caffeine. "What are you working on?" he asked, moving to stand behind her. The laptop screen was filled with code, complex encryption strings, and what looked like financial records. Victoria's fingers flew over the keys with the kind of speed that spoke of extensive training. "I'm accessing your black ledger," she said casually. Sojun's blood went cold. The black ledger. The complete digital record of every transaction, every operation, every dirty secret of his empire. The thing that could buy him immunity or put him in prison for life, depending on who held it. "That's encrypted," he said carefully. "Military-grade encryption. Even if you had the passwords, which you don't, it would take months to crack." Victoria smiled. "I don't need to crack it. I already have full access. That's impossible. The only copies are on drives in my personal safe and my attorney's office in the Caymans. I swapped the drive in your safe and remotely wiped the server in your attorney's Cayman office. And the encryption keys are in your head," Victoria finished. "Except they're not. They're in mine." She pulled up a new window, and Sojun's breath caught. It was his ledger, the real one, complete and unedited. Every name, every transaction, every kill order from the last 15 years. How? I didn't just file your paperwork for 6 months, Victoria said. I memorized it. Every password, every encryption sequence, every backup protocol. 1 week ago, right after I heard them in the vents. When you left for that meeting in Seattle, I spent 48 hours copying your drives and swapping them with dummies. Sojun stared at her. You what? I swapped your drives. Victoria stood, turning to face him. The ones in your safe? Filled with 15 terabytes of very expensive pornography that I carefully curated to match your supposed taste. The real drives? She tapped her temple. Encrypted and stored on encrypted micro SD cards, hidden in 3 locker terminals across the city. With backups in physical drives hidden in 4 different cities, you stole my entire empire. I saved your entire empire, Victoria corrected. Think about it, Sojun. What did Vanessa want? Your money, yes. But more than that, she wanted the ledger. With that, she could flip everyone you've ever worked with. Could bring down not just you, but half the criminal organizations on the West Coast. Realization hit him like a truck. She downloaded the dummy files. She downloaded 15 terabytes of vintage pornography organized by decade and ethnicity. Victoria confirmed, grinning. Which means every move she makes based on that data is worthless. Every warrant, every subpoena, every arrest. All based on evidence that doesn't exist. Sojun started laughing. He couldn't help it. The sheer audacity of it. His secretary, his invisible assistant, had executed the most elegant theft he'd ever seen. Under his nose. In his own home. You're insane, he said. I prefer thorough. Victoria moved closer, her hands finding his chest. I told you I didn't just watch you for 6 months. I planned for this. Planned for the day when someone would try to take you down. I just didn't expect it to be your fiancé. What else did you plan? Escape routes. 3 different safe houses in 3 different cities. False identities. Offshore accounts that can't be traced back to us. And she pulled something from her pocket. A small black key. Access to a safety deposit box containing hard copies of the real ledger. Insurance. Sojun took the key, feeling its weight. You thought of everything. Not everything. I didn't think you'd kiss me. Victoria's smile was soft now. Vulnerable. Didn't think that last night would. He silenced her with another kiss, this one slower, deeper. When he pulled back, her eyes were dark with want. Focus, she breathed. We need to focus. On what? Revenge. Victoria moved back to the laptop, pulling up a new screen. Vanessa thinks she won. She thinks you're in the wind, broke and broken. She's probably planning her victory lap right now. And tonight is the charity gala at the Palace of Fine Arts. Victoria's smile turned sharp. The same gala where you met her 3 years ago. The same gala where she's planning to announce your flight from justice and her heroic role in bringing down the dragon. Sojun understood immediately. You want to crash it. I want to destroy her in front of everyone who matters. In front of the FBI brass. In front of the city's elite. In front of the media. Victoria pulled up a guest list. Everyone who's anyone will be there, including Riker. It's suicide. They'll have security everywhere. They'll have security looking for a fugitive in hiding. Not a couple in evening wear with ironclad fake IDs and invitations I forged while you were sleeping this morning. She turned to him. We walk in the front door, Sojun. We walk in like we own the place. Because by the end of the night we will. How? Victoria's fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up audio files, video feeds, encrypted documents. Because while Vanessa was planting evidence and planning your murder, I was recording everything, every conversation, every meeting, every time she and Riker discussed their plan. I have enough to bury them both. The FBI won't care. She's one of them. The FBI will care a lot when they realize their star agent has been planting evidence and committing conspiracy to commit murder. That poisons every case she's ever worked. Every conviction she's ever secured. Victoria's eyes gleamed. I'm not trying to save you from the FBI, Sojun. I'm trying to make them eat their own. It was brilliant. It was risky as hell. It was exactly the kind of move Sojun would have made if he'd had the time and resources. We'll need clothes, he said. Can't exactly crash a gala in tactical pants. Already handled. I have a storage unit in Oakland with everything we need. I picked up your dry cleaning 3 days ago and never dropped it off. So we have a tuxedo in your size. I have an evening gown in mine. Fake IDs, weapons, even cufflinks. She paused. I wasn't kidding when I said I prepared for war. Sojun pulled her close, kissing her forehead. You're terrifying. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I know. Victoria grinned up at him. But you're going to need someone terrifying if you want to take down a federal agent and reclaim your empire in one night. She was right. And somewhere in the past 12 hours, between the escape and the revelation and the desperate intimacy of survival, Sojun had started to see her not as a weapon or a tool or even a savior, but as a partner, an equal, someone who could stand beside him in the fire and not just survive but thrive. Partners? He asked. Victoria's hand found his. Partners. Then let's burn it all down. The Palace of Fine Arts rose from the San Francisco fog like a monument to excess. All Greco-Roman columns and soaring rotunda, lit from below with golden lights that made the whole structure glow. Red carpet stretched from the valet station to the entrance, lined with photographers and curiosity seekers hoping to catch glimpses of the city's elite. Sojun stepped out of the town car, rented under one of Victoria's many fake names, and immediately felt the weight of 100 eyes. He'd opted for a classic black tuxedo, perfectly tailored, with a white shirt and no tie. He winced as the shirt settled over the friction burns on his back, a stinging reminder of the garbage chute. His hair was slicked back, revealing the dragon tattoo that curved up his neck. He looked like exactly what he was, dangerous money. Victoria emerged from the other side, and Sojun's breath caught. She wore a gown the color of midnight, all flowing silk and strategic cutouts that revealed tantalizing glimpses of dark skin and lean muscle. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant twist, and her lips were painted blood red. She'd transformed from tactical operator to lethal socialite in the span of 2 hours. But it was her eyes that really got him. Behind the smoky makeup and false lashes, they held a predatory gleam. She was hunting. Ready? She asked, slipping her arm through his. As I'll ever be. They moved toward the entrance, Victoria's heels clicking against stone. The security checkpoint was manned by what looked like off-duty FBI agents, subtle earpieces, suspicious eyes, hands that stayed close to concealed weapons. Victoria's fake IDs named them as Alexander and Naomi Collins, hedge fund managers from Hong Kong with more money than sense. The security guard scanned their IDs, checked the guest list, and waved them through without a second glance. Victoria's forgery work was flawless. Inside, the palace was even more impressive. The rotunda soared overhead, all frescoed ceiling and architectural drama. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes. A string quartet played something classical and boring. And everywhere, the city's power players networked and schemed in evening wear. She's on the stage, Victoria whispered, her lips brushing Sojun's ear. East Side, talking to someone from the mayor's office. Sojun followed her gaze, and there she was. Vanessa, wearing white. Of course she was wearing white, looking every inch the grieving almost widow. Her blonde hair was done up in an intricate style, and she held a champagne flute like a prop, performing for the crowd. Beside her, lurking like a shadow, was Riker, his bulk barely contained in a tuxedo, his eyes constantly scanning the room. Professional paranoia. He looked relaxed, but Sojun knew better. Riker was coiled like a spring, ready for violence. They haven't seen us yet, Victoria said. I set us up in the balcony access. You'll approach from the main floor. I'll provide overwatch from above. Overwatch? Victoria's smile was sharp. You think I came to this party unarmed? I have a breakdown rifle in my tote bag. It looks like makeup kits and hairspray, until I assemble it. Takes me 45 seconds to assemble. You're insane. You've said that before. Come on. They separated, Victoria drifting toward a service staircase, while Sojun grabbed a champagne flute and began working the room. He needed to be seen. Needed people to notice him before he made his move. Needed the shock value. Vanessa hadn't issued an APB yet. She wanted him dead, not arrested. That was her mistake. To the guests here, he was still just the reclusive billionaire. He worked the periphery first, deliberately staying out of Vanessa's eyeline. Caught conversations, let his presence register with the crowd. He heard whispers starting. Is that? Can't be. Thought he was in hiding. Perfect. The crowd was starting to part around him now. A bubble of space opening up as people recognized him and simultaneously wanted to see what would happen and wanted to be nowhere near it. The music continued, but conversations were dying out. Attention was shifting, and then Vanessa saw him. He watched it happen in real time. Watched her eyes sweep the room, land on him, go wide with shock. Watched the champagne flute in her hand start to tremble. Watched her mouth open, close, open again. For just a second, the mask slipped, and he saw fear. Good. She should be afraid. Riker saw him next, and the response was immediate. His hand went to his jacket, reaching for a weapon that probably wasn't there. This was a charity gala, after all. But his body language changed, went aggressive, protective. He stepped in front of Vanessa, blocking Sojun's sightline. Too little, too late. Sojun started walking, not running, not sneaking, just walking across the rotunda floor like he owned the place. Because he did. This was his city, his world, and these people had tried to take it from him. The crowd parted like water. The string quartet faltered, the music dying away to nothing. In the sudden silence, Sojun's footsteps echoed off marble and stone. He stepped onto the stage, and the room erupted in whispers. Vanessa backed up, her face pale. Sojun, you can't be here. They're looking for you. There are warrants. Are there? Sojun's voice carried across the rotunda, amplified by the space. Warrants for what exactly, Vanessa? What am I accused of? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked around wildly for support. Found Riker, who was staring at Sojun like he'd seen a ghost. That's what I thought. Sojun continued, his voice calm and cold. You have no actual evidence, no actual crime. Just a lot of carefully planted pieces that don't actually exist. I don't know what you're talking about, Vanessa managed, but her voice was shaky. Don't you? Sojun smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Let me help you remember. December 28th, your bedroom. You and Riker, discussing how to frame me for murder, how to steal my assets, how to ensure I died in federal custody. Vanessa's face went from pale to gray. You're delusional, am I? Sojun pulled out his phone, signaling Victoria to override the AV booth's feed. Above them, the frescoed ceiling went dark, and then it lit up again, but now it was showing a projection. Video, audio, crystal clear. The room watched in stunned silence as Vanessa and Riker appeared on the ceiling above them, 20 feet tall, discussing murder like it was a business transaction. DNA is set. First-degree murder. He dies by lethal injection. And the timeline? 3 weeks. By Valentine's Day, we'll be in the Maldives, and the dragon will be a corpse on ice. The gasps from the crowd were audible. Cameras were coming out now, phones recording. Social media would have this in seconds. There was no containing it. Vanessa's face was sheet white. That was taken illegally. You can't. Fruit of the poisonous tree? Sojun agreed. Which means every piece of evidence you've manufactured against me is now tainted. Every warrant, every subpoena, every arrest, all worthless. He watched it hit her, watched her realize what he'd just done. He hadn't just cleared his name. He'd destroyed her entire case, made it impossible for the FBI to touch him without admitting their star agent was corrupt. But that's not the best part, Sojun continued. He was enjoying this now, enjoying watching her squirm. See, while you were busy planting evidence, you forgot something important. What? Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. You forgot to check if I had insurance. If someone was watching? If someone was documenting everything you did? Sojun gestured to the projection. I have footage of every move you've made for the last 2 weeks, and 6 months of audio that proves you've been working against me from day one. 6 months of you planning my murder. 6 months of you conspiracy to commit murder, evidence tampering, corruption. 6 months that's going to put you in prison for the rest of your life. No. Vanessa stumbled backward, looking for an exit, but FBI agents were already moving toward the stage. Real ones this time. Not her plants, ones who just watched their colleague admit to multiple felonies on camera. Riker made his move then. Drew his weapon. He had smuggled one in after all, and aimed it at Sojun. Don't move. Or what? Sojun didn't flinch. You'll shoot me? In front of 500 witnesses? In front of every camera in the room? I'll say you attacked first. No, you won't. The voice came from above. Everyone looked up. Victoria stood on the balcony, a rifle assembled and aimed. Red laser dots centered on Riker's forehead. Because I don't miss, Victoria continued, her voice carrying. And I'm very tired of traitors. Riker's eyes went wide. The gun in his hand wavered. For a moment, Sojun thought he might actually try it. Might actually fire. Then Riker smiled. Slowly, deliberately, and turned the gun back toward Sojun. He was going down, but he was taking the dragon with him. Everything happened at once. Riker's gun swung toward Vanessa, his finger tightening on the trigger. Vanessa screamed, stumbling backward. The FBI agents drew their weapons. The crowd scattered, champagne flutes shattering on marble. And Sojun dove sideways, putting himself between Riker and the crowd. But before Riker could fire, before any of it could escalate further, a shot rang out. Single, precise, professional. Riker dropped like a puppet with cut strings, the gun clattering from his hand. Blood bloomed across his shoulder. Not lethal, but incapacitating. He hit the stage hard, gasping in pain and shock. Everyone looked up. Victoria stood on the balcony, rifle still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. Her face was calm, her hands were steady, and the message was clear. She could have killed him. She chose not to. I don't like traitors, Victoria called down, her voice echoing across the stunned rotunda. But I also don't like unnecessary death. Someone call an ambulance. FBI agents swarmed the stage. Some went for Riker, securing his weapon and applying pressure to the wound. Others went for Vanessa, who was trying to run but found herself surrounded. One agent, a woman with steel gray hair and a face like granite, approached Sojun. Mr. Cheon, she said. I'm Assistant Director Mitchell. I think we need to have a conversation. About what? Sojun kept his voice calm. About how your agent just tried to frame me for murder? About how she's been running illegal operations for years? About how this entire case is now compromised? Mitchell's jaw tightened. About damage control. And about what you want in exchange for that footage. So she understood. Good. Save time. I want to walk out of here tonight. And I want you to lose the warrant for my arrest until you clean up your own house. For myself and for my associate. He gestured to Victoria, who was being escorted down from the balcony by security. I want all investigations into my business dealings closed. And I want my assets unfrozen. That's a big ask. You just watched your star agent admit to conspiracy to commit murder in front of 500 witnesses and every major news outlet in the city? Sojun replied. How many of her cases are going to get appealed? How many convictions are going to be overturned? How much press is the Bureau going to take when this hits the morning news? Mitchell's face was stone, but her eyes flickered. She knew he was right. I can make this go away, Sojun continued. I can give you Vanessa and Riker gift-wrapped with a bow. I can even give you 6 other corrupt agents in her network. All I want is to be left alone. And your criminal enterprise? What enterprise? Sojun smiled. I'm a businessman. All my dealings are perfectly legal. You're welcome to audit me anytime. It was a lie. They both knew it was a lie. But it was a lie that let everyone save face. Let the FBI close this case without admitting how deep the corruption went. Let Seo-jun walk away without a target on his back. Mitchell considered for a long moment. Then she nodded. We'll need that footage. You'll get copies. I keep the originals. Insurance? Exactly. Mitchell's smile was thin. You're a smart man, Mr. Cheon. Smarter than most people I deal with. I sincerely hope I never have to see you again. Likewise. Victoria appeared at his side then, escorted by 2 agents who immediately backed off at a look from Mitchell. Victoria appeared at his side, having surrendered her weapon to the tactical team with a polite smile in her midnight gown. Her hand found his, and Seo-jun squeezed gently. We good? She asked quietly. We're good. They watched as Vanessa was led away in handcuffs, still protesting, still claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But no one was listening anymore. She'd been exposed, destroyed. All her careful planning, all her manipulation, undone in one perfect moment of poetic justice. Riker was loaded onto a stretcher, still conscious, still glaring at Seo-jun with impotent rage. He'd live, would probably spend the next 20 years in federal prison. But he'd live. Come on, Victoria said, tugging at Seo-jun's hand. Let's get out of here before anyone changes their minds. They walked out of the Palace of Fine Arts the same way they'd entered. Through the front door, past the cameras, past the crowds. But this time, people weren't whispering. They were staring openly, taking pictures, recording video. The dragon had returned. And he'd brought a queen. They didn't go back to the Oakland safe house. Too exposed. Too many people knew about it now. Instead, Victoria directed the car to a marina in Sausalito, where a yacht sat waiting in the fog. You have a yacht, Seo-jun said. I have access to a yacht, Victoria corrected. Belongs to a client I did some work for in my cartel days. He owes me a favor. Several favors, actually. The yacht was sleek and modern, all white fiberglass and tinted windows. Inside was pure luxury. Leather couches, a full bar, a master suite that took up most of the lower deck. They stood in the main cabin, the lights of Sausalito twinkling through the windows. So, Victoria said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. We did it. We did. Seo-jun took the glass she offered, their fingers brushing. You were incredible up there. You weren't so bad yourself, she smiled. Though I still can't believe Riker tried to shoot Vanessa. What was that about? Survival instinct, Seo-jun said. He saw everything falling apart and tried to tie up loose ends. If Vanessa died, she couldn't testify against him. He miscalculated. Most people do around you. Victoria laughed, taking a sip of her whiskey. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Seo-jun set his glass down and moved closer. You saved my life. Multiple times. Destroyed my enemies. Gave me back my empire, all while making it look easy. It wasn't easy, Victoria said softly. Every second of the past 2 days, I've been terrified. Terrified I'd miscalculated. Terrified I'd get you killed. Terrified I'd lose you before I really had you. You have me, Seo-jun said. He took her glass, setting it aside, and pulled her close. I don't know what this is. Don't know what we are. But you have me, Victoria. Completely. She looked up at him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't go back to being the dragon. Not completely. Promise me you'll try to be the man I fell in love with, the one who visits his mother's grave and remembers what kind of tea people like. Seo-jun's throat tightened. I don't know if I can be that man all the time. I'm not asking for all the time. Just some of the time. Just enough. I can do that, he said. But only if you promise me something too. What? Promise me you won't disappear. Won't ghost back into the shadows. Won't leave me when this gets hard. Because it will get hard, Victoria. The cartel still wants you dead. My enemies will come after you to get to me. We'll have targets on our backs for the rest of our lives. Victoria's hands came up to frame his face. I'm not going anywhere, she said fiercely. I didn't save your life just to abandon you after. We're partners, Seo-jun. Equal partners. That means I stand beside you in the fire. Not behind me? Never behind you. She pulled him down until their foreheads touched. Next to you. Always next to you. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. Kissed her like she was air and he was drowning. Kissed her like she was the only real thing left in a world full of lies. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victoria smiled. So what do we do now? Now that we've won? Now? Sojun touched the dragon tattoo on his neck, feeling the raised skin under his fingers. Now we rebuild. Not the empire I had before. Something new. Something clean. Can you do that? Build something clean? With you? Sojun pulled her closer. I think I can try. That's all I ask. They stood there in the main cabin of a borrowed yacht, holding each other as the fog rolled in over the bay. Outside, San Francisco glittered like a jewel box. Inside, two people who'd survived the worst of the world found something like peace. Victoria? Sojun said after a while. Yes? That thing you said, about falling in love with me, did you mean it? She pulled back just enough to look at him. Every word. Why? Because I think I'm falling in love with you too. And it terrifies me. Victoria's smile was soft and real and beautiful. Good. Love should terrify you. Means it matters. Means it's real. Is this real? The realest thing I've ever known. Sojun kissed her again. And this time it wasn't desperate or fierce. It was gentle, reverent. The kiss of two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to walk into the light together. Later, much later, they made their way to the master suite. Victoria's midnight gown ended up pooled on the floor. Sojun's tuxedo followed. And in the privacy of the yacht, with the fog pressing against the windows and the world locked outside, they came together not as survivors or partners or weapons, but as lovers. Morning came soft and gray, fog still clinging to the marina. Sojun woke to find Victoria already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee, wearing nothing but his shirt. She looked peaceful, content, happy, even. Morning, she said, not turning around. Morning. He got up, pulled on pants, and joined her. Outside, the boats rocked gently in their slips. Everything was quiet, calm, like the storm had finally passed. I've been thinking, Victoria said. Dangerous. She smiled. I've been thinking about what comes next. You said you wanted to rebuild something clean. I want to help. How? I have skills, Sojun. Skills beyond killing people and forging documents. I can create entire businesses from nothing. Can move money without leaving traces. Can build legitimate empires that can't be touched by the FBI, or the cartel, or anyone else. You want to be my CFO? I want to be your partner, Victoria corrected. Real partner. Equal say in everything. Business, personal, all of it. Sojun considered. Everything in his life before had been about control, about being the dragon, the king, the man at the top. But Victoria wasn't asking to serve. She was asking to share the throne. Partners, he agreed. But if we're doing this, we do it right. No more secrets. No more hidden agendas. No more secrets, Victoria agreed. Starting now. Ask me anything. Your real name. She blinked. What? Victoria Johnson can't be your real name. You said you were recruited at 18 in Lagos. Victoria Johnson is too Western. So what's your real name? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Onyeka Okonkwo. Victoria was my cover identity. Used it for so long I almost forgot the real one. Onyeka. Sojun tested the name. Liked how it felt in his mouth. Beautiful. You can still call me Victoria, she said quickly. Everyone does. I'm more Victoria than Onyeka now anyway. No. Sojun took her hand. If we're doing this, really doing this, then I want to know the real you. Onyeka. She smiled, and it transformed her face. Made her look younger, softer. No one's called me that in 8 years. Get used to it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking coffee and watching the fog burn off. Eventually, Victoria, Onyeka, spoke again. The cartel will come, she said quietly. I failed my mission. They'll send someone else. Let them come. We'll be ready. And Vanessa's network? There are more agents like her. More people she worked with. They won't just let this go. Then we'll deal with them too. So June pulled her close. You said I needed someone terrifying to take on the world. Well, now I have you. And you have me. I think we can handle whatever comes. You really believe that? I believe in you. And I'm starting to believe in us. Onyeka leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. The dragon and his queen. Is that what we are? That's what they'll call us. The stories are already spreading. The Mafia boss who took down a corrupt Fed. The mysterious woman who saved him. We're going to be legends, Sojun. I never wanted to be a legend. Just wanted to survive. Well, congratulations. You survived. We survived. Now what? Sojun thought about it. Thought about his mother's grave and Sunday visits. Thought about children's hospitals and anonymous donations. Thought about the man he'd tried to be buried underneath the dragon he'd had to become. Now we build something worth surviving for, he said finally. Something clean. Something good. Something my mother would have been proud of. That's a tall order. Good thing I have an excellent partner. Onyeka smiled. Speaking of which, I should probably tell you about the other safe houses. And the offshore accounts. And the 3 different false identities I have set up for both of us. And the... Sojun silenced her with a kiss. When he pulled back, she was laughing. Later, he said. Tell me later. Right now, let's just be here. 2 people who survived hell and found each other. 2 people who are going to change the world. Eventually, she agreed. They spent the rest of the morning on the yacht, planning and dreaming, and occasionally forgetting to plan in favor of other activities. By the time afternoon came, they had the beginnings of a blueprint, not for an empire built on blood and fear, but for something new, something better. Legitimate businesses, charitable foundations, tech startups, real estate development, all of it clean, all of it legal, all of it building toward a future where Sojun could look in the mirror and see the man his mother had raised instead of the dragon he'd become. It'll take years, Onyeka warned. Maybe decades. The transition from crime lord to legitimate businessman isn't easy. I have time. We have time. And you're sure this is what you want? You could go back. Could rebuild the old empire. Could be the dragon again. Sojun looked at her. At this woman who'd killed for money but saved him for love. At this woman who'd given him back his life and his freedom. At this woman who saw him, really saw him, and chose him anyway. The dragon is dead, he said. Burned up in the penthouse. What rises from those ashes is something new. Someone new. And who's that? Someone who deserves you. Onyeka's eyes filled with tears. You already deserve me. You've always deserved me. You just didn't know it yet. I know it now. As the sun set over San Francisco, painting the fog in shades of orange and pink, Sojun pulled Onyeka close. They stood on the deck of the yacht, watching their city, their empire, their future, spread out before them. Stay with me, Sojun said. It wasn't a command, it was a plea. Through all of it, the good, the bad, the dangerous. Stay with me. Always, Onyeka promised. Through fire and flood and every enemy we make, I'll stand beside you. Partner, partner, he kissed her as the sun disappeared, as the city lights began to flicker on, as their new life began in earnest. And in that kiss was everything they'd survived and everything they'd become and everything they'd build together. The dragon had fallen, the queen had risen, and together, they would forge something neither of them had ever believed possible, a future worth fighting for. In the distance, San Francisco glittered like a promise. And for the first time in 15 years, Sojun believed in promises again, all because of a woman who'd been sent to kill him and chose to save him instead, all because of Onyeka, his partner, his equal, his queen. Until next time, beautiful souls. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember, sometimes the people sent to destroy us end up saving us instead.